Hey guys, I want to give you a quick tutorial on how to solve for a side in right triangles and how to solve for an angle in right triangles. Now we're going to follow these general 5 steps here. First, we're going to label opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. Then we're going to pick a ratio, sine, cosine, or tangent. Then we'll use our calculator, or if you prefer, a trig table. Then we write a proportion, and last but not least, we will solve, okay? So if you take a look at this example, we're asked to solve for AC, missing AC. So I label this triangle by starting here at the 35, my angle, 35 degrees, all the way across. That's my opposite side. I follow that, and this is follow the perpendicular to find my adjacent side. And then I label the last one as hypotenuse. And notice that one's crossed out because it's not labeled. We're not using it. We don't need to know it. So the two that we are using here are O and A, and that's how we're going to decide whether to use sine, cosine, or tangent. So I wrote SOHCAHTOA up here to help me with that. I'm using the opposite and the adjacent, the O and the A. And O and A, that leads me to the TOA part, the tangent ratio. So I'm going to use the tangent ratio at 35 degrees. Okay, now I know that this tangent ratio is opposite over adjacent, so I can write it as 3 over x. Now, on my calculator, that's where I'm going to find the value of tangent 35. So we bring up our calculator, maybe. Let's try this. Okay, and we type in tangent and then 35, and we close the parentheses and hit equals, and gives us this decimal, 0.700207538. Now I'm going to write that down as just 0.7 over 1. Okay, equals 3 over x. So let's check in on our steps one more time. We labeled, we picked the tangent ratio, we used our calculator, we wrote a proportion. Now all that's left is to solve, okay? And so to solve this proportion, we cross multiply. I get 0.7 times x, which is 0.7x, equals 1 times 3, which is 3. Last step, I'm going to divide by 0.7 to both sides, and that will give me my final answer. Now, on my calculator, I'm going to divide 3. I take 3 and I press divided by. Now I want that whole decimal. I know it says 0.7, but I want the whole thing. So I'm going to press answer, and it's going to plug in here this 0.700207538, that whole decimal when I do this. And then I hit equals, and I get 4.2844. So that's what goes for my answer here. I type in 4.2844. Now, it says rounded to the nearest hundredth, which means I go 2 places past the decimal, and I ask the number to the right, are you 5 or bigger? 4 is not bigger than 5, and so I leave it here. Now, what would happen if it was 5 or bigger? Then the 8 would have become a 9. All right? So try that out. Check your answer. Good to go. All right, now let's take a look at what happens when we're solving for an angle in right triangles. Well, we follow the same steps. Notice here, I've labeled opposite, followed my perpendicular to get the adjacent, and then I labeled the hypotenuse. Okay, according to our steps, next I need to pick our ratio, sine, cosine, or tangent. Well, we're using the adjacent, we're using the hypotenuse. We are not using the opposite. So A and H is going to lead us to the cosine ratio. So we write cosine of our angle, which we don't know, equals the adjacent 2 over the hypotenuse 5. All right. Now here we don't know the angle, so we're going to use inverse operations. So this is mostly just calculator work. Check it out. On your calculator, you're going to type in inverse cosine, and you're going to put the fraction 2 over 5. And it tells you your angle, 60